The thought collector. I thought that today I should observe how people think, so I headed towards my city. The idea had struck me at 3 a.m., as all truly unhinged ideas do. I'd been lying awake, staring at my ceiling, when it occurred to me that I had no idea what actually went through people's minds. Sure, I knew what they said they thought about work, family, the weather, but what did they really think? What bizarre tangents did their minds follow while waiting for the bus? What strange connections did they make between the price of coffee and the meaning of existence? So, I did what any reasonable person would do. I decided to find out. I grabbed my grandfather's old tape recorder, one of those clunky things from the 1970s with the chunky buttons, and headed downtown at dawn. My plan was simple, or so I thought. I would observe people, really observe them, and somehow divine the contents of their consciousness through pure, concentrated attention. The city was just waking up when I arrived. The sky had that weird purple-orange quality that makes everything look like it's underwater. I positioned myself on a bench near the central fountain, where 4 major streets converged, and waited. The first person I observed was a businessman in a gray suit, walking with that peculiar hurried but not running pace that office workers perfect over years of barely making it to meetings on time. He was holding a coffee cup in one hand and his phone in the other, and he kept glancing between them like he was trying to solve a complex equation. I pressed record on my tape recorder and whispered, Subject 1. Approximately 45 years old. Thinking about emails?
No, wait.
He just sighed. Definitely thinking about emails. Or possibly his mortality. Or both. The correlation between unread emails and mortality is probably higher than anyone wants to admit. Subject 1 walked past without noticing me, and I felt a small thrill of success. I was doing it. I was observing. The next person was more interesting, a woman in her 20s with bright green hair and paint-stained overalls. She walked differently, slower, with frequent stops to look at things. A pigeon. A poster for a missing cat. The reflection in a shop window. Subject 2. I muttered into the recorder. Thinking about colors? Shapes? The inherent futility of trying to capture 3-dimensional reality on a 2-dimensional canvas? Or maybe just breakfast. Probably breakfast. As if on cue, she walked into a bakery. This went on for about an hour. I observed, I recorded, I speculated. An elderly man feeding pigeons, thinking about either pigeons or the war, possibly both. A teenager on a skateboard, thinking about either skateboarding or the inevitability of death, probably both. A couple holding hands, thinking about each other, or possibly wondering if the other person thinks they're holding hands too tightly. Then something strange happened. A man sat down next to me on the bench. He was wearing a purple velvet suit. Not like a pimp or a party-goer, but like someone who had decided that purple velvet was simply the most logical choice for a Wednesday morning. He had a magnificent beard that looked like it had its own ecosystem, and he was carrying a notebook bound in what appeared to be actual tree bark. "You're doing it wrong," he said, not looking at me. I stopped recording. "Excuse me?" Observing thoughts. "You're doing it wrong." He opened his bark notebook and started sketching something. You can't observe thoughts from the outside. Thoughts are inside things. "I know that," I said defensively. "I'm inferring from behavior patterns."
Ah.
He nodded sagely, still sketching. "So you're just making stuff up." "I'm using observational techniques." Observational techniques for unobservable phenomena. He finally looked at me, and his eyes were an unsettling shade of amber. "You know what that makes you?" "What?" "Either a psychologist or a witch. Possibly both." I should have left. This man was clearly unhinged. But something about the matter-of-fact way he said it made me curious. "Okay, so, how would you observe thoughts?" He smiled, revealing teeth that seemed just slightly too white. "You have to go inside." "Inside where?" "Inside the thoughts." He reached into his velvet jacket and pulled out what looked like a pair of very old, very strange glasses. The frames were made of twisted copper wire, and the lenses swirled with colors that shouldn't exist. Not purple exactly, not green, but something adjacent to both. "Put these on," he said, handing them to me. "Absolutely not." "Why not?" Because I don't take weird glasses from strange men in velvet suits. That's like rule number one of existing in a city. Is it? He seemed genuinely curious. I must have missed that orientation. Despite every instinct telling me to walk away, I found myself taking the glasses. They were surprisingly light, almost weightless. The copper was warm against my fingers. What do they do? I asked. They let you see what people are thinking. Literally. The thoughts appear as sort of floating text? No, more like images. Moving images. Thought movies, if you will. Thought movies. I didn't name them. The universe did. I looked at the glasses, then at him, then at the glasses again. These are just regular glasses with weird lenses, aren't they? Some kind of filter. Only one way to find out. I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was the 3 a.m. lack of sleep. Maybe it was the absurdity of the entire morning. Maybe I was just tired of inferring and wanted to know. Whatever the reason, I put on the glasses. The world exploded into chaos. Above everyone's head, and I mean everyone, floated clouds of images, words, sounds, and sensations. They weren't quite solid, more like projections, but they were there. The businessman I'd observed earlier was walking back past the fountain, and above his head was a swirling mass of spreadsheet cells, his daughter's face, a recurring worry about whether he'd locked the front door, and an inexplicable craving for tacos. "Oh my God," I whispered. "First time's always overwhelming," the Velvet Man said. "You get used to it." The green-haired artist emerged from the bakery with a croissant, and her thought cloud was a riot of colors and shapes, mixed with lyrics to a song I didn't recognize, a reminder to call her mother, and a surprisingly detailed plan for what appeared to be an elaborate heist of a corporate art gallery. "This is insane," I said. "This is thinking," he corrected. "Human thinking. It's always this insane. People just don't realize it because they're inside their own heads." An old woman walked by, her thought cloud a gentle mix of memories, a wedding, a funeral, a garden, someone named Patricia who apparently made terrible decisions in 1963, and a shopping list that kept rearranging itself. A child ran past, thought cloud full of dinosaurs, the word poop repeated 17 times, and a deep philosophical question about whether the moon followed him specifically, or everyone generally. "This is too much," I said, starting to feel dizzy. "How do people function when they're thinking all of this all the time?" "They don't know they are," the man said. "That's the trick. Consciousness is a highlight reel. Most of this stuff is just background noise. The brain running diagnostics while the person thinks they're thinking about one thing." I watched as a jogger passed by, her thoughts a mixture of pace calculations, a grocery list, a fantasy about punching her boss, song lyrics, worry about her knees, and a sudden, vivid memory of a birthday party from 1997. "Everyone is insane," I said softly. "Everyone is human," he corrected. "Same thing, really." A businessman across the fountain was standing still, his thought cloud cycling through what must have been 30 different conversation openers for the woman standing next to him, ranging from nice weather to an elaborate story about a parrot he'd never actually owned. He went with, "Hi." The woman's thought cloud showed she was thinking about 17 different things, none of them him. "Why did you give me these?" I asked, turning to the Velvet Man. "Because you wanted to observe thoughts," he said simply. "Now you can." "But why do you have them?" He smiled that too white smile again. "Because I'm a thought collector. I observe, I record, I remember."
Someone has to.
Thoughts are the most ephemeral things in the universe. They exist for seconds, maybe minutes, and then they're gone forever. Doesn't that seem like something worth preserving? I struggled for the word. That's actually kind of beautiful. It's also kind of horrifying. Depends on the day. He stood up, closing his bark notebook. "Keep the glasses. Use them wisely." "Wait, I can't keep these. I don't even know." But he was already walking away, his purple velvet suit disappearing into the morning crowd. Above his head, his thought cloud was a swirling mass of music, mathematics, poetry, and what appeared to be recipes for soup. I sat there for a long moment, watching the thoughts of strangers float past like bizarre bubbles. A teenager thinking about a crush, a meme, whether anyone would notice if she just left school and became a pirate. A security guard thinking about retirement, his cat, and a surprisingly complex theory about how birds were government surveillance drones. A couple walking together, their thought clouds occasionally overlapping, showing they were both thinking about lunch, but imagining completely different restaurants. Then I saw something that made me freeze. A man was sitting on another bench across the fountain, and his thought cloud was wrong. Instead of the chaotic, beautiful mess of normal human thinking, his thoughts were organized. Linear.
Cold.
They moved in perfect geometric patterns, like a computer program running through code. And they were all focused on one thing, the woman with the green hair, who was now walking down the street with her croissant. His thoughts were detailed. Clinical. They included her routine, her route, her apartment building's security weaknesses. "Oh no," I whispered. I stood up quickly, then hesitated. What was I going to do? Run up to the woman and say, "Excuse me, I'm wearing magical thought-reading glasses, and that man is thinking predatory thoughts about you?" That would go well. But I couldn't just do nothing. I made a decision. I walked quickly toward the green-haired woman, rehearsing a dozen different approaches. When I reached her, I just blurted out, "That guy in the brown jacket is following you. I know this sounds insane, but he's been watching you for the past 10 minutes, and I wanted to tell you, so you could be aware." She turned, startled, then looked past me at the man. Her thought cloud showed confusion, then wariness, then gratitude. "Thank you," she said. "Really? Thank you." She pulled out her phone and made a call, changing her route. The man's thought cloud showed frustration, then recalculation, then finally abandonment as he walked away in a different direction. I took off the glasses and sat back down on my bench, hands shaking. The tape recorder was still running. I picked it up and spoke into it. Observation. People don't just think thoughts. Thoughts think people. We are all being thought by our brains, streams of consciousness that we pretend to control but mostly just witness. And everyone is thinking 1,000 things at once, most of them contradictory, many of them weird, some of them beautiful, and a few of them dangerous. The line between what we think and who we are is much thinner than we'd like to believe. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's what makes us human, the chaos, the contradiction, the constant internal noise that we somehow shape into something resembling a person. I paused, then added, "Also, I think I just prevented a crime using magical glasses given to me by a man in a purple velvet suit. I should probably get more sleep." I put the glasses in my pocket and headed home. But I kept them. And sometimes, on mornings when the city is just waking up and the sky is that weird purple-orange, I put them on and watch the thoughts of strangers float by like strange, beautiful, terrifying butterflies. Because the velvet man was right. Thoughts are ephemeral, but they're also everything. They're the invisible architecture of human existence, and someone should be paying attention, even if it makes us all look a little insane.